Let's look at his gap versus the 20, because that's who ended up racing, right? The 20 car was the dominant car all day, led the most laps, and was super, super strong.
Yeah, it was pretty remarkable how close the race ended up being coming down to the last lap. But these graphs above it are gap to a car. So plotted here we have the 22 car moving across here. This is his position highlighted. The plot that we have here in red is the difference between the 22 and the 20, meaning when these two lines intersect, those two cars are in the same position on the racetrack. So what we see happen right here as this run has started out, the 20 is making a gap. So he's actually driving forward, making a gap, getting out ahead of the 22. You can see that's just a result of having more pace. The graph below here is on the same lap number. So as you look up and down, the same axis correlates between the top graph and the bottom graph. So you can see the pace that the 20 car is making on a lap time. Being lower here means he's faster. So he's outpacing the 22. If it was just an all-out race with no strategy play, the 20 car is going to win by a pretty good margin. But the pace that the 20 is running doesn't afford him to be able to stretch it on fuel. He's going to need to burn more fuel, and so he's going to have that pit stop. The slope of this line shows the gap that the 20 car has relative to the 22 is projected to intersect before the end of the race. At the point that intersects, that would be where the 20 car would take the lead of the race. But he catches some traffic. That ends up being this little section right here where we see the gap to leader curve flatten out. And that's a result of the 20 car running slower and the 22 car maintaining a fast pace.
Yeah, you can see for almost this entire stint after he pits, he's gaining a second or more a lap. And then right here, we have this 4-lap window where all of a sudden he's running the same lap time and he stops gaining. Let's dive into what happened there for the 20 car, because he's catching lap traffic and he ends up with 42, almost looks like he's going to pull down. The 20 didn't quite realize it. He had to lift big into that corner and gave up 4/10 on this specific lap. Then, as you look forward, he has to get past him all the way down the next straightaway instead of passing him clearly through 3 and 4. And then he gets 3 wide guys in front of him again. And that kind of stuff is what makes the coming back through the field risky, because you have to pick these guys off without losing any time. He finished 6/10 behind the leader. Every 2/10 lap, every 1/10 lap adds up and ends up with what we saw. Not to mention, the 22 car had a lot of help. 12 car actually ends up lined up right behind him and gives him a push for probably the last 15 laps. And this is huge. Not only is the 12 car having a bad day, so he's not trying to pass the 22 outright for the race win right here. He's a teammate. He's seen him going for the win. He knows the whole scenario. Penske does this all the time. They work so well together. And for 15 laps, the 12 car pushes the 22, helps him get through lap traffic, helps him show more speed down the straightaway. His lap times actually fall off more even to the 99. That ends up making him pass him later in the race and ends up being the entire reason he wins.
In this scenario right here, with catching that draft from the 12 car, the 22 is able to run the same throttle trace that he was running when he was by himself, but he's able to go that much faster. And so the pace that he picks up here while he's getting that push from the 12 is what causes him to be able to maintain that gap that he needs to stay in front of the 20 cars he ends up catching. So looking at SMT right here, we're able to highlight the speed difference. This is a lap of the 22 car by himself compared to a lap of the 22 car with a push from the 12. Notice here, this is the throttle trace. So when it's flat at the top, that means it's wide open throttle. When it's flat at the bottom, that means there's no throttle being applied. So you can see the throttle trace is almost identical. So his inputs are about the same. His mid-corner speed is almost the same. This is the speed graph pictured above here. So what happens is they come off the corner, Joey gets in the gas at the same point that he would on a normal lap by himself, but there's a big speed difference, and that's a result of having the draft or the push from the 12 as he's working together with him. And this happens lap after lap. They have an opportunity where they're able to work together, stack up some pace. Joey doesn't have to burn any extra fuel to do this, and this is ultimately what ends up keeping him out there.
Yeah, it ends up being worth 6 miles an hour down the end of the straightaway. And the other way to look at it, we have the ghost car right here. It's a car length and a half. Again, if you watch the replay, the 20 finishes probably what? 5 to 10 car lengths behind him. So you add up a car length and a half every single lap from getting a push from your teammate, and that's literally the margin of victory.